My name is Baruch Kvasnika, and I'm President of Jerusalem Seminary.
Dr. Kvasnika, good to see you. I'm going to call you Baruch.
That's right.
It's so good to see you. Welcome to our podcast, Exegetically Speaking.
Thank you.
It's a fun podcast to do because we find out a little bit about you first, and then we'll look at a biblical text. So how did you get started reading Hebrew?
Well, I started at Wheaton College in Western New York, and I had a wonderful teacher, but it was more analyzing the text and learning about the text than really learning the Hebrew. And so when I went to Israel, they tried to teach me in the same way, and I was challenged in that way, and I found a couple people teaching it a different way. It was more lived, spoken, engaging, total physical response, lots of storytelling, and that allowed me to learn it a lot better and internalize it more. And so I started teaching it about 2001 and have been teaching it ever since. And
a lot of times in the teaching, you learn a lot, don't
Yes,
you?
that's right.
You teach Bible translators, you teach students of all stripes.
Jerusalem Seminary has about half of its students that are Bible translators coming from dozens of countries. We've had, I think, 14 this semester, 21 last semester. Different countries represented.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And you teach the Bible in the land itself because you live in the land.
Yes, we do. Most of our students are online, but we'd love for them to come in person. And so we have short-term courses, and we're building out longer-term courses as well.
If they want more information, how do they do that?
Yeah, just check out our website, jerusalemseminary.org. jerusalemseminary.org, and you can see our course catalog there and our academic catalog, and sign up. Register for a single course or a certificate or an MA in Biblical Studies.
And you can do intensive courses in Hebrew there.
Yes, yep. We have special programs. There's a waiting list actually for that one, but we can make a new one if
you need another one. All right, today we're going to look at Genesis 2, and then we're going to move over to Exodus chapter 20. All right, tell us a little bit about this text, chapter 2, verse 1. What's going on here?
Yeah, well, this is creation story, right? And we all know the creation story, and I thought I knew it for many years. I thought, wow, this is just common. It's Genesis chapter 2.
Yeah.
It's spoken out every Friday night for the Sabbath liturgy for Jewish people, and so it's just commonplace in a way. But as I was teaching Bible translators over the past 20 years, I came to realize that they and I often thought that what was allowed on the Sabbath as far as work was not coming really from the text. And so I dug into the text itself a little bit more and realized that God never explicitly says don't do plain work. That's a little shocking.
Now you say plain work.
Well, I can say it more dramatically. God never says don't work on the Sabbath. Begs the question, well, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Of course God says you can't work on the Sabbath. So the word in Hebrew God says not to do is melacha. He never says don't do avodah. And so these are two different Hebrew words every week
for work.
Yes, for work and worship and work. And so it got me really thinking and studying this.
You want to read chapter 2, verse 1 all the way to verse 3 in Hebrew?
Sure. V'yechulu hashamayim v'ha'aretz v'kol tzva'am v'yichal Elohim b'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asa v'yishbot b'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asa ויברח אלוהים את יום השביעי ויקדש אותו כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. So you see this common word of melacha again and again and again, 3 times I think it is.
Finished the work that he'd done.
Right. So this is not the generic word for work.
Yeah.
So this is already striking. It didn't finish his avodah. He finished his melacha. So then the question is, what's
the difference between the two?
There we should look at the other text of Exodus 16.
Well, before we do that, let me ask, I've always said, well, just looking at this, God worked 6 days and on the 7th day. So, but here it says on the 7th day, it's verse 2, chapter 2, God finished his work.
Yeah.
In other words, day 7 apparently includes God finishing the work.
This is a very big conundrum that has a rich exegetical history.
Yeah.
Is that happening just before the day, or is it the beginning of the day, or is it technically doesn't look like it's just the 6 days. It creeps into the 7th day, right?
Yeah.
But we have this set up as imitating God to actually rest. So the implication is that there is a time of rest, but that melacha, that type of work, does seem to come into the Sabbath. Now this is jumping ahead, but I do believe that there is a type of sustaining work that God does. In the book of John, Jesus says God is working on the Sabbath, right? Sustaining work, not creative work. And so now we're already getting to some of the differences between works. Avodah
and
melacha.
Now we're in Exodus chapter 20. We've got the 10 Commandments, as they're often called, the Decalogue, the 10 words. Chapter 20, verse 8, remember the Sabbath, keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor, do all your work. Mm-hmm. All right, tell us what we're looking at here in this part.
This is a command to remember the Sabbath, to keep it holy, right? But then there's this, verse 9 says, for 6 days you shall labor, and explains it. You shall labor, to avod, and you shall do all kinds of creative work. So it kind of unpacks what that means of avodah, right? All kinds of laborious, meritorious, heavy, commonplace, money-making work. The rabbinic tradition makes it simpler by usually translating something like creative work. That has challenges as well. But the point is that it's not the normal word for work. It's some other kind of work. So if we look at it in Hebrew, maybe I'll read verse 9.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sheshet yamim ta'avod, ve'asita kol melachtecha. Verse 10 reads, V'yom hashvi'i Shabbat le'Adonai Elohecha lo ta'aseh kol melacha ata v'bincha, and it goes on and lists all the different. It's like very inclusive of all these different people. But here you can hear that you're not to do lo ta'aseh kol melacha. It doesn't say kol avodah. Melacha avodah. This is a rich difference, I think, that can be really unpacked. And so in living in the land for now 30 years, I've come to appreciate that, God gave his word as a living word that needs to be able to be lived out. God didn't give laws that were just to taunt them for not being able to do it and then bring a savior. He gave laws that were good, and they have to be lived, right? So he's not going to give a law that's not possible to live in some way on a basic level. If you're trying to keep the commandments of Sabbath, for example, in ancient times, you make a mess. Milk spills on the floor, food, and the kid says, "Oh, I can't do that because that's work," right? Well, that's not very livable, right? You can't live with a mess. Or, I can't cut up this salad or this food. I can't prepare food in this way because it's work. Well, in a tightly exegetical way, if you're looking at the Hebrew, you can do basic work, but not the money-making, creative work. So you have to be able to live, right? And so often as Protestants, I think we have maybe a more robust understanding of what the Jews can and can't do than they do themselves. Does that make sense? So the Jewish person understands, I've got boundaries. I can't do this, I do this, and they have all sorts of laws, right? There's also awareness that they have space to do some kinds of sustaining work even on the Sabbath, just not melacha, which is that creative work. And so for me, I think that really helps us.
That's melacha that they can't do.
That's
which is that creative work. You described it, creative work. This is work that creates wealth, work that creates your job, basically. But if somebody wanted to clean up a mess on the floor, that's okay.
Right. And
that's more like avodah.
Right. I wouldn't like to actually determine that, but I think as a community of believers, we can appropriate this spiritually or try to understand it exegetically, historically. And it's good for us to look at that word melacha and look how it's used in the Bible. So the Jewish tradition looks at how God commanded the Israelites to do melacha in the creation of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. So that's our best evidence of what that word work is positively used to do, right? And so the ancient sages infer not to do these 24 different types of melacha and to keep that sacred. That's what they understand the Sabbath laws to mean. I don't know that we have to go that route or something just to understand historically, but we can appreciate what they've done and look at how melacha is used and start thinking about what that means in ancient times, and if we want to also as Christian believers, we believe that all Scripture is God-breathed, right, including the Older Testament, Jesus' Bible, and so how that might apply to us as well. But I'm not really coming to bring answers to that, just questions.
Just questions. Well, that's the goal of exegesis as well sometimes. Not necessarily answer every question, say, what can I do and such. But it really opens it up in a lot of very, very positive ways. Dr. Baruch Kvasnika, thanks for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking.
Thank you.
Sometimes good exegesis and working with the original languages does not answer questions. Sometimes it raises just a few more. Thanks to Baruch Kvasnika, President of Jerusalem Seminary. You are doing great work there, even through this war that you've been through. To echo the Psalms, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. If you would like to read the Psalms in the original Hebrew, the place to go is Wheaton College. They have an amazing faculty, a superior place and program for you, and students who are always above average. You'll find links in the show notes telling you how you can get started and get started today. Thanks to our staff at Wheaton College. We say thank you and goodbye to Jessie Dugan. She has worked with us now for seasons 6 and 7 on Exegetically Speaking. She's taking on a new role as editor for the Wheaton magazine. She'll do well. Thank you for making us successful in your last year or so with us. Thanks to our audio editor, Kathy Capes. Thanks to Phil Kagi for our intro and outro music. Until next time, I'm David Capes. Thanks for listening.